Hi, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Charlie.
And this is the Jug O Sip podcast.
You can find us on Google and all social media at Jug O Sip Podcast.
New episodes release every Monday and Friday.
Okay.
Sup, y'all?
Yeah. How y'all doing? Today we're talking about a very interesting topic, a topic that interests both Lindsay and I, and has interested us for a number of years. It is the topic of alters and tulpas, specifically through the lens of the wonderful show Wilfred.
And a little perspective from another fantastic show, United States of Terror.
Yes, United States of Terror.
Because I rewatched that show very recently. And it came out like in 2008, but I watched it several times. So that's also going to be brought up into this episode.
Yeah, I've watched the series. I've watched the full series myself before then. But
it's been a while, though. You might want to eventually rewatch it.
Yeah, but Wilfred was a show, for people who have never heard of the show Wilfred, it actually started in Australia, I think.
Yeah, they did, the first version is in Australia. It's kind of like how The Office started, in England, and they had the American version. It's the same with Wilfred. And I personally like the American version of Wilfred better. But Wilfred is played by the same actor in both.
Yeah, in the American version, they had the Australia version to speak of, to springboard off of, but the American version basically found a better way to tell the same story.
Right.
It was a lot cleaner and more succinct in the way that it was.
Yeah.
Right. Now, it centers around a character by the name of Ryan, who in the American version is played by Elijah Wood.
Who we are very much loving towards in this family. Yes. We are Elijah Wood supporters in this family.
We're very big fans of Elijah Wood and Daniel Radcliffe as well, although they're not related.
They're not the same man. But there are similarities, and I love them both very much. Yes.
So Elijah Wood plays Ryan, and on the first episode, Ryan is attempting to kill himself by drinking a cocktail of pills.
Various pills.
Now, the problem is, the next morning he wakes up, and he ends up not actually having killed himself, but now the neighbor girl that he is in love with, her dog now appears to him as a man in a dog suit.
Yeah, so while he's just like some sort of like doodle, I don't know what kind of doodle, the audience sees him as Wilfred in the human suit, the way that Elijah Wood's character Ryan does. I think you only see Wilfred as a dog a couple of times.
Yeah.
But not to give too much away. But it's basically about that. And the whole time you don't understand why Ryan sees him that way.
Yeah.
Until they explain it.
Yeah, they explain it at the end, which we will not spoil because the ending is amazing. But the entire the show, it deals with two things. It deals with human growth and how this alter that Ryan has begun living with and experiencing helps him deal with several traumas presently and past existing in his life,
while simultaneously kind of also ruining his life.
Yeah, and at the same time, it deals with just this psychological mystery of what the hell is Wilfred? Why does he exist the way he does to Ryan? A
lot of people might ask, was Wilfred an alter? Is he a tulpa? Well, we're here to explain you the differences now.
Yes, so alters and tulpas, those were concepts that I was introduced to very young, and
Wasn't it by Young?
Huh?
Wasn't it by Young that you learned that from, or was it a different psychiatrist?
No, I didn't learn it from a specific psychiatrist.
You just learned about the concept.
I learned about the concept. I don't exactly remember how, but I did learn about it. So basically, I wanted to read this post online. It's a Tumblr post that very accurately and clearly explains the differences between a tulpa and an alter.
A tulpa construct specifically.
Yeah. Tulpas are intentionally created by their host, and the practice originated from the Tibetan/Buddhists many, many years ago. Alters/facets, I think that's what that word says?
Facets, yeah.
Yeah, alters/facets are not intentionally created and are the result of childhood trauma, and these terms strictly belong to DID/OSDD community.
Now, DID is what is formerly known as MPD, multiple personality disorder, but DID was now changed to dissociative identity disorder, and I forget exactly what year they changed it because it made more sense. See, these alters are created because of a form of disassociation. Yeah. If you have experienced any kind of trauma, you most likely have disassociated in some level. Now, you probably haven't develop new alters and personalities and disassociate in the way that you might see in the show United States of Terra. But you might have at some point for even months at a time felt like you were trapped from your emotions, like behind a glass. It almost feels like you're behind a glass wall from your feelings. You can't really feel things. Sex feels numb. Food doesn't taste good. You get lost wandering around in places you're familiar with because you have hit a certain wall with your trauma to the point where it's gotten so painful that you can't afford to feel anything.
Yeah.
And it may not last even more than a week. Some people, I had it for months a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I had
9
it.
months.
I had it for years, for a while because
on and off.
Yeah, because the reality that I was living in was just too harsh to take, and that's the key pattern here. When you experience something that essentially makes reality itself unappealing to the mind, then your mind, depending on the conditions of your mind, may have you invent what's essentially an adult imaginary friend to help assess your own thoughts, or you will involuntarily create an alter that will or more that will take over for your personality, so you can literally check out of reality.
Like, say, for Tara's example, you have...
from the United States of Terra.
She has Alice, who is a 50s housewife based on a former caretaker of hers that she completely forgot existed. But it was subconscious. She has Buck, who is this redneck male, but he's sort of like the patriarch of the group, and he comes out when she feels threatened and needs, like, to feel safe. Alice comes out when she feels like she's failing her children. T, the alter that's a 15-year-old girl in this poor woman's, 40-year-old body, comes out when she needs to connect with her daughter. Each alter has, and there's more alters that get introduced sporadically, because sometimes you can you could have like the same 3 alters for years and suddenly have a new one you don't even know about.
Yeah.
And her husband told her, he'd be like, there was a new one, I don't even know what the fuck it was or whatever. And, she has no recollection of any of this. Like, literally, the alters have forced her to cheat on her husband like 33 to 35 times in their marriage over the course of something like 17 years or something.
Yeah.
Because the alters have relationships. Like, Buck would go have sex with the woman at the bowling alley, and then Tara would wake up and, naked in bed with a woman, and she wasn't even herself wasn't gay, but Buck, was a male.
Yeah, he's a straight man.
So he claims he doesn't have a dick because it was blown off in Nam.
Right.
But they all have different personas, and Tara's knows most of them exist, but they're very separate. And eventually you learn how to I forgot what the phrase was, but there's a way to unite with your alters in a way where they appear to you, and it's like you can separate from them and it makes it easier to manage them. But that's usually through years of therapy and medication. There's different levels of it. Like the movie Sybil and that story, that turned out to be, I think her case, it turned out to be fictitious.
Yeah, the story of Sybil was actually a hoax.
But that's what that is. It's if you were raped at a young age or had something deeply horrific happen to you at some point, and you could develop it later in life. You could be 35 years old and have all these traumas, and then suddenly one day you can't handle it anymore, and reality slaps you in the face too hard, and you disassociate so hard that you create an alter you don't even know exists, and you wake up in someone else's house or come to in a bar in a totally different outfit.
This is something I don't actually talk about much. There was a time, back before I knew that I had depression, I was completely ignorant to the fact that I had depression. And I thought that I had some form of DID.
Yeah, I thought I had that too.
Yeah, because of how messed up my life was and how thoroughly I had to disassociate from it.
Yeah.
So, and I did disassociate to a certain degree.
Like the way I described earlier.
But it wasn't nearly as extreme as the victims of multiple personality versions of disassociation.
But if you're psychologically aware, and the same thing happened to me, a couple of years ago, I basically had a total breakdown. I was totally acting out of character. I had a really deeply traumatic thing that just triggered all this stuff. I had an IUD that was fucking with my personality and making me aggressive and angry. It was fucking with my personality altogether. I thought I was developing DID because I was I don't feel like myself. I don't even feel like who I am anymore. And I was losing time and shit.
Yeah.
But not because I was disassociating so hard someone else was taking over. It's just my brain was blacking out.
Yeah, the hormones.
And making me do weird shit.
The hormones inside of that IUD were
combined with the trauma I had right before.
Yeah, it was a lot. And so the character Ryan in the show Wilfred and Terra from the United States of Terror. These are two fictional examples that you can go and experience. I think you can find both shows on YouTube. But these people were traumatized or experienced some kind of trauma, whether it was from the outside or from their self-harm.
Now, did Ryan have DID? Because it was a little different. Tara turned into her alters, whereas Ryan was projecting an alter onto a dog.
Well, that's the thing. Alters can function a little bit differently depending on...
What was the difference between, like, were they the same kind of alter?
Well, let's look up types of alters, because that's an excellent question.
Because, was it all considered DID? Was that...
It was.
Because I'm saying, cause I definitely wasn't like any kind of schizophrenia. That's a totally different disease. But like, I don't know. I just didn't know if his DID came. There's okay.
Okay, so a quick Google search, traumadisassociation.com. What are alters? Other terms for alters include alternate identity, dissociative identity, distinct identity, personal state, personality, dissociated part, self-state, part of the mind, part of self, dissociation, part of personality. Oh boy, okay.
Scroll down. So there's let's just go down to the characteristics of different types of alters.
So alters may have different ages, for instance, younger or older, a different gender.
T from the United States of Terra, which was 15 years old.
A different gender. So you got
Buck.
Then different names or no name.
Which there were some more like later, like Gimme and things like that had like no real name.
Different roles or functions were either related to daily life or trauma. So that's where Alice really kicks in.
Well, and Tara's case too, they had Bryce, remember? And that was like the abuser alter, and because that was the person who traumatized her.
Different attitudes and preferences, e.g. in food or dress.
Yeah. Like, which is like when Buck had sex with women.
A different perception of their appearances, different hair or skin color or body shape.
Yeah.
Different memories. Some may remember trauma or events in daily life that others have amnesia for.
Yeah.
Psychobiological difference to alter.
Allergies
as in
like
different
that.
Vision, medication responses, allergies.
Buck wears glasses.
Yeah. Buck is nearsighted and Tara's not.
Right. Buck's also left-handed.
Yeah, and Tara's not.
And Tara's not. They all have like different like quirks. They like certain foods, like T's a vegetarian.
Yeah. And the common alters, again, this is via traumadisassociation.com/alters if you want to look at this website yourself. According to this, the common alters are apparently normal parts.
Tara, like I in that case.
Child alter.
Which was Chicken, which was her 5-year-old self.
Internal self-helper.
That's probably Alice. Introject.
I don't know what that is. I guess
opposite sex alters, which was like Buck in that case.
Persecutor, protector, sexual alter, suicidal alter, internal homicide.
In one case, Sarah had one alter that was her therapist, was based on a real life therapist.
Then there's teen alter. Now the less common is animal alter, baby or infant alter, caretaker or soother, demon, demonic, and evil alter. Fragment. Military or political alter.
Well, the demonic and evil alter and the spirit, the ghost, the supernatural reminds me of the alter story you told me about the person who had baby Jesus.
Oh yeah, right. That's true. Yeah, there was I actually spent a little bit of time in a psych ward because I was in a college and I basically had written this fictional story to help myself deal with some of the very traumas I was just referring to, and the response, basically, I had someone got a hold of the book where I was writing these fictional stories, and they thought they were real.
And it got blown out of proportion.
And the college ended up sending me to a psych ward for 2 weeks. While I was there, I encountered someone with DID who had alters, several. One of them happened to be baby Jesus,
which falls under the baby and infants and the spirit ghost supernatural alter.
Right. Then you got non-human alters, robot or machine alters, shell, spirit ghost supernatural being alters, and then subparts.
So they have different types of alters. I don't know exactly. Like the ones that you project onto a different being, like the dog, for example, I don't know how that sort of differs from Tara's, which are internal in herself.
They got an explanation here, which it's an animal alter, so that'll cover Wilford. Let's just read this. Abused children may develop animal parts / alters because they identify with animals and consider them friends. Animal parts may be able to express emotions that the apparently normal parts can't. Animals like tigers may function as protectors, growling when an apparently normal part is distressed. Alters may also become to believe may also become to believe they are animals because abusers either told them that they were or were treated like animals. Right. So it sounds like animal alters are generally primal responses to trauma that happen more when you're a child.
Tara had an alter that was pure id, which makes sense, but where Wilfred doesn't make any sense because he's a dog, but he's also a man in a dog suit that smokes weed and gets Ryan into trouble all the time. Like, Wilfred is not a helper alter. He is constantly manipulating Ryan.
Yeah, I think
he's a manipulative, and Ryan doesn't know if he should ever trust him or not.
Let me see. Fragment. Some alters limit their role. May have a small number of emotion. Okay. Gatekeeper alter. The type of alter has the job of keeping traumatized alter from appearing. No. Host parenting, no. Insiders. The term covers many different kinds of alters who are primarily responsible for everyday life. They often hold on to trauma memories. They often have been so separated from everyday life that they are unaware that the years have passed.
I'm having a hard time finding where any of these fit in other than maybe animal. This is if anybody has any psychological training, because I've only taken abnormal psych. I have the bare minimum psychological information. I study psychology when I can, but there may be people who have more information about this than I do.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know really where, like, there's non-human that technically is also.
As a result of severe disassociation, they are constructed by the logic of dream or trance and can be strongly influenced by a person's culture. As a result, they can take any form. Some alters may not view themselves as human, and they may either feel or fully believe that they are not part of the human being. They may view themselves as having a different physical form, are not physical at all. For example, a spiritual being. This is recognized within the DSM-5's description of DID. Prolonged and severe interpersonal trauma can leave a person feeling no longer human, and has been replaced with people with has been reported in people with complex PTSD. There's a lot to go through here. I don't know if we're gonna.
This is a really.
See exactly what describes Wilfred, but essentially Wilfred to Ryan, he's like. He is like the person that helps Ryan assess the traumas that he lives with and expresses every day, but does not have the emotional depth to deal with.
Right. So while Wilfred poses as his best friend, he also still gets him into lots of trouble. And that shows Ryan's inner conflict. And all of this unfolds. I highly recommend you watch it. It's a great show. It's on Hulu, isn't it?
It was at one point. I'm not sure if it still is, anymore.
But it's a great show. If you can get your hands on it, highly recommend.
Yeah. The thing is with Wilfred is initially Wilfred just points out a flaw in Ryan's personality. Ryan usually immediately rejects it. And then what ends up happening is that Wilfred gets Ryan in trouble. But when you look at the pattern, you realize that Wilfred is forcing Ryan to pay attention to the trauma by making it an impossible thing to turn away from. Like, he makes it this task in his life that
he's face his shit.
Yeah, he's locked into it. So, and it forces him to face it. And that's what Wilfred does, because by the end of each episode, each episode is named after the specific emotional issue that Ryan is addressing in that episode, he finds a way to actually address it by the end.
Yeah, and so that covers like what alters are. They're involuntary. They're used to protect what the victim in some way or another. You can have 1 to 100, like you can have so many.
And there are, I've seen a few examples of alter. Like, there was this recent episode of Dr. Phil, which I watch occasionally. There was a young man on there, a young black man, who believed he was a cyborg from the future, and that is a very rare alter type according to this website. But the thing is, there was no core personality. There was not him and another alter. So I'm imagining that some people experience alters as a flat out replacement of their personality. Some people see it as a projection they're pushing onto something else.
Whereas tulpas and constructs are very different.
Yeah.
They are voluntary imaginary friends that you create consciously just to bounce ideas off of or help you in some way. For example, if you're a writer, you might create a tulpa construct to help you balance out a certain part of yourself you can't really manage on your own. And you might use that character in stories and things.
There's actually a phenomenon called second lifing. It's not the game.
Not the game online.
Not the game. It's there's actually a video on it by a YouTube channel I follow called Academy of Ideas. Let me hold on. Academy Academy of Ideas. Let me just see if it'll pop up. Of Ideas. Okay. Yeah, it's an entire. There's a whole video about it. It's on YouTube. It's a very good video. I would highly recommend it. But the point of the video was making is that second lifing is a technique that many humans have practiced for centuries, where essentially if you have parts of your personality that you do not like and cannot find a way to reconcile with, what you do is you invent the personality you want to have and you emulate those traits. By emulating the traits, it helps you assess the traits that you can't fix.
It's usually created by creative people, and actually there's quite a few famous people that have tulpas. You have Beyonce's Sasha Fierce.
Yeah,
Go
ahead.
People think Sasha Fierce is just a nickname. No. If you hear Beyonce talk on talk shows or doing videos or whatever, she's not the same woman you see on stage tearing it up. And that's not because she has a stage presence. She talks about this. She's talked about this.
Yeah, she's spoken about it a few times.
This is a tulpa. Nicki Minaj has several. She has Roman and Roman's entire family, and Roman is mentally fucking crazy.
I'm gonna just look as you speak about these people. I'm just gonna look them up.
Another noticeable one is Lil Dicky. He has brain. You misspelled her name like a travesty, but it's fine. Yeah, she has the song Roman Holiday. That's about Roman, her tulpa.
Right. Hold on. Okay. The first reference to Roman was a passing mention on Twitter. Minaj simply stated that she had officially changed her name and she would only respond to Roman Zelensky. Okay. Roman Zelensky.
It sounds like Roman Polanski.
Roman Zelensky is one of Nicki Minaj's alter egos. He is Minaj's most well-known and utilized alter ego, as well as her self-professed favorite. Zelensky is described as a homosexual male from London, England, characterized as being far more outspoken and perhaps malicious than Minaj herself.
Yeah, he's a little aggressive.
His first appearance in the song was in Bottoms Up, a song with Trey Songz. Roman was declared dead by Minaj herself on February 2014. However, 5 months later, Nicki held a Q&A on Twitter and said that she will rap as Roman again when a fan asked her.
I wonder if Lady Gaga's Joe Calderone is considered as a tulpa, because
that's a good one. All right,
Joe Calderone. I don't know if I don't think Gaga's ever said, because Gaga takes her own forms, but
let's just look it up. Joe Calderone.
Yeah, that is Lady Gaga's male alter ego. Okay. As first appeared in the song You and I.
Here we go. So Joe Calderone is a fictional male alter ego to Lady Gaga created in 2010.
For the song You and I, it was in the music video.
Beginning as an invention of my mind, Joe Calderone was created with Nick Knight as a mischievous experiment. After working together tirelessly and passionately for years, eating bovine hearts, throwing up on ourselves, giving birth to an alien nation and an AK-47, Nick and I began to work to wonder, how much can we get away with? How can we remodel the model? In a culture that attempts to quantify beauty with a visual paradigm and almost mathematical standard, how can we fuck with the malleable minds of onlookers and shift the world's perspective on what is beautiful? I asked myself this question, and the answer, drag.
I don't know if Gaga did Joe Calderone as an alter or as a tulpa, but or maybe she's just an incredible actress. But when she is Joe Calderone, and again, he could just be a drag alter ego, but there's a totally different persona. There's a cocky James Dean vibe that isn't there when Gaga is just Gaga. But Gaga herself feels like almost like an alter ego, almost like a tulpa, because there's Stephanie Germanotta, then there's Gaga.
I think Joe Calderone, because the thing is with tulpas, remember, these are thought forms that help you assess your mind. Yeah. So a lot of them have a little bit more or less utility than others. I don't think Joe Calderone had the same kind of utility that Sasha Fierce does. Sasha Fierce is a character designed specifically to help Beyonce address her stage fright.
Yeah, Beyonce's talked about that.
Joe Calderone is a counterculture character that was designed to help.
See, sometimes you can't tell though.
Yeah, it was designed, according to this, it was designed to help Lady Gaga break down some cultural conventions in the entertainment industry.
But she did a great job either way. But I was wondering, I didn't know if Joe Calderone was just a performance alter ego or if he was a tulpa.
I would count him as a tulpa. I think he just has more variety of purpose.
I mean, and maybe he's developed more in Gaga's mind since. That was 10 years ago.
Right. But yeah. So
I hope we get to see Joe Calderone again. Hint, hint.
I want to go back to Roman
and
really
his whole
quick
family.
because Roman Zelensky is a very fascinating tulpa, and I'm not the biggest Nicki Minaj fan, but this is just a fascinating.
Well, here's
person.
Here's first of all, here's a breakdown. Roman Zelensky, origin London, England, male. Gender male, sexuality homosexual, personality angry, vulgar, carefree, comical, evil, threatening, violent, erotic, cutthroat, and insensitive. I think that might be where she puts any of her anger. That might be her her, because I don't know Nikki personally, but like if she's anything like me, she probably has some things in her life that still piss her off. So it might be where she channels that rage.
Could be.
But his relative is Martha Zelensky, which I think that might be his mother. His fashion style is black and erotic. His first appearance is Roman's Revenge. He's also featured in Roman Holiday, Roman in Moscow, and Barbie Dreams, and many, many more. She raps as Roman.
Yeah.
Which itself is very impressive.
The character Martha Zelensky, Roman's mother, was created as a type of foil to Roman, first appearing in Roman's Revenge. Martha is an older woman with a great respect for tradition, manners, and the rules. Further highlights the outlandish and audacious behavior of Roman. The relationship between the two is clearly strained. Martha treats Roman as a child in Roman's Revenge and believes
I need to listen to that song.
Yeah, I've heard it. It's kind of it's eerie, but it's interesting. Believes he needs to be exorcised of demons
in Roman
Holiday, based solely on the fact that he does not look or act like an average person. He's unruly. His unruly behavior, homosexuality, or direct conflict with Martha's beliefs. Yeah.
This sounds amazing. Like this whole, I didn't even know all the details. There's abandonment. There's a thing about his abandonment.
Abandonment. Okay. After Minaj released Pink Friday, Roman Reloaded, the re-up, fans and critics alike noticed the absence of Roman. Over the course of 2013, there was no mention of Roman, neither a song where people could feel Roman was there. On February 14th, Nicki Minaj declared he was dead, and she did not mention anything else. Right?
But then, he made another appearance. I think she just got tired of using him for a while.
Oh, wow. Okay. Roman is typically portrayed as a blonde and wears mostly dark clothing. An exception to this was the Monster music video when he had black hair. Although Minaj said that he likes to experiment with pink and green wigs, wears lipstick, Roman has been compared to Eminem's alter ego.
That's probably why she wears the pink and green hair and and the wigs or dyes her hair, and then she has that appearance.
So when she's blonde and wearing black, that's Roman.
Also, you have to keep in mind, you can see Roman in Nikki's face sometimes.
Yeah.
Nikki is a very beautiful girl who has a very pleasant smile, generally.
Yeah.
When Roman's out, that's when, if you've ever seen Nicki Minaj look at the camera and smile really crazy, or at the end of Anaconda when she does that insane laughter for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
That's Roman, baby. That has to be Roman, because that you see something in her switch when he's out.
Well, I don't know Nicki Minaj at all. I know nothing about this person.
You can kind of see it. You can see where she switches.
She probably, like many of us who have utilized the help of tulpas,
yes,
probably experienced some kind of trauma that didn't quite break her, didn't disassociate her, but she needed a lot of help making sense of.
Well, I use one.
Yeah, as do I.
Yeah,
but we just want to talk, so let's see. So you got Sasha Fierce, Roman. Who else did you name? Lil Dicky's brain.
Lil Dicky brain. Lil Dicky.
You said Joe Calderone too, but Lil Dicky.
But yeah, so Lil Dicky, he's a Jewish rapper. Incredible. If you haven't heard his stuff, he's comical, and he talks about how his dick is shitty, because he calls by Lil Dicky because he had these surgeries when he was a kid.
Basically, he was born with a tangled urethra, and a series of surgeries left him with they're not mutilated genitals, but they
To him, it looks awful.
They look awful to him.
He has to like his dick, especially for him to feel secure to have sex with people.
Yeah.
And he has but he makes jokes about it in his song. He has a song called My Dick Sucks. And I
think that's just a fictional song for the show. That's not a real song.
Well, it's still a song because they play it.
Yeah.
And but I'm saying all of his songs make fun of him and his sex life, how his dick is. There's a whole song about his dick being sensitive. There's a whole thing. And you can hear his voice change when Brain comes out. And Brain is literally just a tulpa of his brain with eyes and legs. He's really cute, actually. And his voice is deeper than Lil Dicky's, and he raps a little slower. He sounds almost like Lil Dicky, but tired.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm going to try and look up Brain.
At the end of one song, Brain is just Brain has to poop. Don't neglect Brain.
Yeah.
Because Lil Dicky will neglect himself. and not even realize it. He talks about that. Like, he has a show called it's called Dave.
Yeah, which we love that show. It's a very good show. It's
fictional, but it's loosely based on his actual career and how he got started and everything. And they haven't talked about Brain on it. I'm hoping they will, because that has been such a important part.
Yeah, Brain is actually...
He even has a hashtag called I'm Brain.
Yeah, Brain's actually featured in a couple of music videos. He's in...
Oh, well, go back to that shirt. Did he have a shirt that says, "This bitch don't know about Pangea"?
Yes.
Oh my God, why don't we have that shirt? This bitch don't know about Pangea.
Yeah.
Oh, can we buy that shirt, please?
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite Brain lines.
We'll get it. Yeah, we'll get it.
Yeah, there's this whole song, Lil Dicky's having sex with this girl.
It's called Pillow Talking.
Yeah. And it's a girl, like, he having sex with that he's attracted to, but she had, like, you know...
Well, he had sex with her, and they're talking afterwards.
But he doesn't like her as a person. It's one of those cases where you bring home somebody, you realize they're boring as a person after you have sex with them. And they had nothing in common, and she tried to argue all this shit that... they argued about vegetarianism and the creation, and she was talking about why she believes in God. And there's a point where they're trying to talk about, like, the dinosaurs and all this shit, and Brain points to the girl and goes, "This bitch don't know about Pangea." And I laughed for like 45 minutes. Like, it was great.
Yeah, no, it was really funny.
It shows, like, what it's like when you go home with somebody, have sex with them, and realize they're dumb and not interesting.
As a Tulpa, Lil Dicky actually ended up making a joint album with Brain.
Just one whole, because Brain appears in several songs.
Yeah, he's in several songs, but most of the songs that he's appears in is on Brain's EP.
Definitely check out Lil Dicky.
Like, Lil Dicky is a guest on Brain's
album.
EP, on Brain's album.
Yeah, you should definitely check out, because, like, it's really funny, but it's also really intelligent.
Yeah, it's an interesting psychological thing that happens when it comes to Brain and Lil Dicky. Then you got so Brain is he's closer to Wilfred than Sasha Fierce would be. Like, yes. Sasha Fierce is an alter ego. Brain is closer to, like, an imaginary friend.
Yeah.
And Wilfred is like the imaginary friend, whereas Buck or Alice or Chicken, those are alter egos.
Yes.
And also those are very different, because Wilfred, Buck, Alice, those are alters because they're involuntary. Brain, Sasha Fierce, and probably Roman, I don't know for sure, but probably Roman and his family,
they're controlled.
Are controlled and voluntary constructs.
Your tulpas and your constructs don't come out against your will. They will speak to you internally through your own ideas and thoughts, and you're very aware that they're a part of you. It's a part of you that you created this image for that makes you feel stronger or whatever, but you know that it's not real, and you're consciously aware of it. Whereas alters with dissociative identity disorder almost like feel... they're so real that they start taking on their own form almost. Like United States Terror, they talk about the family, like they talk about Buck, Alice, T, like they're part of the family. Like they'll come out at any point. They have rules in which he can't have sex with the alter, specifically T. You know, like there's this whole thing. Whereas tulpas and constructs, they don't really interfere with your day-to-day life. Like Charles and I both have constructs, tulpas, and it doesn't even interfere with our relationship in any way.
We can talk about them a little bit if you want.
Now you looked at something that this is interesting at celebrity alter egos, which I don't like. See, Mariah Carey's Mimi, I think that also might be a tulpa.
I am not sure, but the thing is, they have like Miley Cyrus as Hannah Montana. That doesn't count.
That's not a tulpa or an alter.
That's a person. That's a character that she played on the show.
Right. Miley didn't even play Miley Cyrus on the show. She was Miley Stewart.
Right.
An average everyday girl who was Hannah Montana.
Here's a good one. Ziggy Stardust. Bam.
I was going to say the real Slim Shady, but also Ziggy Stardust is a great thing. David Bowie created Ziggy Stardust, I believe, in like roughly the 70s. Yeah. And that was for David to channel a different part of his music.
Right. I was trying to... I just wanted to see what the rest of the article was.
But from what I can tell, Ziggy Stardust was like a tulpa. He had control over that. It was sort of like Sasha Fierce. It was his performance alter ego. The same way Marshall Mathers has Eminem, Slim Shady. Eminem and Slim Shady are very different.
Well, Eminem and Marshall Mathers are pretty much the same person, because if for people who haven't already gotten this,
yeah, it's true.
Eminem's name is just his initials. It's because his initials are literally M and M.
Yeah, and if you talk to him, I mean, I haven't talked to him, but I'm just saying you could tell when he talks in interviews versus when he's rapping. It's very different.
Yeah, Slim Shady is...
I don't think Slim Shady is even so much around anymore. He's
not really.
kind of outgrown that.
Slim Shady was probably a product of M's drug days, you know, but the thing is, Slim Shady he's a lot like Roman.
He's very aggressive and crass. Whereas, believe it or not, Eminem, Marshall Mathers, deeply intelligent and thoughtful person.
Yeah, very mild-mannered, you know.
When you watch him in interviews, he mostly just wants to like play video games and chill with his family. Slim Shady Marshall Mathers had a lot of abuse and shit growing up and a lot of anger and drug problems. So that's where he put all that anger. Now go up real quick. I want to see that real quick. Another one they listed that is not, as far as I'm concerned, at least I don't think, a tulpa, which is Christina versus Xtina. Xtina was just a phase of Christina Aguilera's career. That was dirty Christina Aguilera. Right. But that did not feel like a tulpa. That was not an alter. That was just a different image. Christina only went by Xtina because we call Christmas Xmas. It just added to the X dirty, sexy stuff.
Did you want to take a second to talk about tulpas that we use?
We can talk about our tulpas.
Would you like to? Okay.
Why not? Do you want to start? Because you have two.
You start with yours. Yeah.
So my tulpa, I invented relatively later in life. I invented her in 2017, and it was helping me. I had just gotten out of the breakup with my last girlfriend, and I created this tulpa of a Amazonian Sparta type woman. She's not really from any particular type of like time in history per se. She's about 3,000 years old. But she looks only be in her mid-30s. She's about 5'7", 5'6", kind of built like Xena the Warrior Princess, and her name is Esme, which means kind defender. Esme has like this lush, long black hair. She's very stoic, very sexy. That's where I channel a lot of my sarcasm and use her to cope with certain traumas. She makes me feel stronger. So Esme got me through a time where I feel weak, and I don't even need to turn to her all that often anymore. But, every once in a while I can feel that piece of me. She has a very deep voice. She talks like this. Hello, my name is Esme. I created this whole backstory for her, but she's my warrior queen. She teaches me how to be strong on those days where I just can't pull myself out of depression. She's gotten me through a spiritual growth. During the time when I was meditating more, getting in touch with my witchcraft. Esme is a war witch. So, for my spiritual growth, Esme is a great construct to lean on during those times when I just don't feel like I can pull myself out of my shit.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with, again, tulpas they're voluntary. These are
voluntary coping mechanisms. We're not insane.
These are adult imaginary friends. That's what they are.
And they're quite healthy, actually.
Yeah, and this is something that humans have been doing for thousands of years. It's a way that because being a human being, frankly, is just very complicated, and sometimes you need a little bit of help.
And it's not like we hear voices in our head or anything, and it's not a constant thing.
No.
Every once in a while, you'll just feel that piece of yourself speak to you. On days when you need it. It's
like if you're a person who experiences an inner monologue, and you have that little inner voice that's telling you to go one way, even though you might not want to do that.
It's like creating a personality for that.
If you gave that personality a name and an image in your head, then that's a tulpa.
The part of you that is deeper and more in tune than you realize, your intuition, your consciousness, all of that stuff that you need, you can create an image for that, a visual separate person that you can envision and talk to yourself almost inside.
Now, in the case of me, my tulpas are much older. I've had them since I was like 9. It really just started with 1. And
I didn't even know it was a thing. It hadn't even occurred to me to even try this.
Well, the thing is that these guys weren't even the first. Like, my first tulpas were legit imaginary friends when I was a kid. It was this pink. They were
but
these.
They died.
They didn't die.
I thought you said they died. I thought Sophia ate them.
No, I just stopped using them.
Okay, I thought they died.
But basically, it was these 2 dogs. It was a pink and a blue dog, kind of like the ones from Blue's Clues. Like, if you imagine the dogs from Blue's Clues.
Oh, those ones. I thought you meant the other ones that were part of okay, no. That's a whole thing.
If you remember blue and magenta from Blue's Clues,
it was like
imagine
green.
They were the same color, but imagine a hyper realistic version of those same dogs.
Oh, they were blue and pink. I thought you said green and pink.
No, blue and pink.
Oh, okay. So not like Cosmo and Wanda colors.
No. They were like a hyper realistic beagle versions, but they were in those same colors, and it was Sparky and Lola. Those are nice names. Yeah, those are my first imaginary friends.
Well, because you weren't allowed to have pets.
I wasn't allowed to have pets, and I wanted pets, but at the same time, I felt very isolated as a kid. So I wanted to be able to go outside. I wanted to explore. I was a pretty athletic kid at the same time, like, I like the idea of playing sports. I just wasn't, my mom sheltered me so much, she didn't allow me to leave. So I came up with these tulpas to deal with the trauma of being isolated from the rest of society.
And I had imaginary friends as a kid. My brother had a whole imaginary family that when he got tired of them and he outgrew them, their story was they died in a house fire. But he was very distressed about it for like a while. And kids have those imaginary friends to just deal with certain emotions or play certain games, but you can do it as an adult in a very structured way, and it could help you a lot with managing any kind of emotional trauma or stresses.
Yeah. When sometimes, even if it's not a traumatic emotion, sometimes emotions are just very complicated. You don't get a rule book when you're born as a human.
Sometimes you can't really talk to certain people about certain things.
And there are things that are happening inside that cannot be explained with whatever language you were born with. I mean, if you have like the luck of speaking a monosyllabic language like Mandarin, then maybe you can express certain ideas that can't be expressed in English too. Or like in German, they have words for like Schadenfreude. That's a word for the feeling of...
I learned the opposite of that today, and I totally forgot what it was, which is instead of taking pleasure in misfortune, it's like taking, like, I think it was displeasure and other people's pleasure. Fortune?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, Germans have a lot of words for everything. I'm quite impressed with that language.
But that's what I'm saying. There's so many... The human experience is a myriad of complexities. And there has never been a point where humans have been able to account for it because we are a constantly evolving life form.
And some days you can put your thoughts and ideas and you can be like, I'm disgruntled. And other days you can't think of a word of a mixture between sad and mad. So you just say you're smad.
Right.
Like humans are not always on top of their game. So sometimes we need an extra input from our inner selves.
Right.
That we know it's actually us, but it helps us put it in a different perspective.
As life evolves over time, it's quite possible that there are generations who have experienced emotions that plainly didn't exist in other generations because the combination of events didn't require that emotional combo to happen, which is why some of these disconnects happen. But in my case, I was experiencing something like that with my immediate family and personal child life, which is why I came up with the construct as a kid that did not have a name initially. I came up with this construct when I was very young. At the time, I was into a character by the name of Spawn, and I really he was very similar to Batman, but he was black, and he was much more tortured. He was fueled by trauma. In fact, trauma kind of became a power for him, and he would kill people the way that Batman was not willing to. I liked that character, and I eventually formed a character that was inspired by him and Blade and Wolverine and a couple of other characters.
And
they all
kind of created his own over time. He got more unique.
Over time, he became his own person, but all of those interesting expressions of, because for me it was about not feeling like I could express my aggression. I wanted to express myself and feel safe enough to do it, and I felt weak. I didn't feel like I was strong enough to express truthfully.
And Shadow, your construct.
The construct's name is Shadow.
He's very big. He's very strong and powerful looking, and I think you created him when you were just a skinny little boy, and it made you probably feel stronger. It probably made you feel like you had that protection that you couldn't give yourself at the time.
It made me feel strong enough to deal with things that I thought I had no power over. And that's the thing. Over the years, he's had lots of different kinds of powers.
And different evolutions.
His general look has stayed pretty much the same, but as I evolved as an artist, his look did too. And as I evolved as a person, the way he looked evolved with me. But this is a construct, a tulpa that I have used for many years. To this day, I continue to use this tulpa.
When did Sophia come into the picture?
Well, that's the next thing. Before I get to her,
I didn't know what year you got.
The reason his name is Shadow is because when I was a kid, dealing with all these traumatic events, I was trying to explain my life to another kid around 5th grade. I was like 9-ish years old. And as I explained this to the kid, I don't know if at this point, I don't know if it was the other kid that came up with this or if it was I that came up with this. As I keep trying to remember it, it goes back and forth.
Well, you were a kid. It's hard to remember everything.
Yeah, but basically I said that I felt like I was a person born in a dark situation and I was being defined by a dark situation. But on the inside, I'm a good person and I want to be defined by good things. So it was like a being of darkness that was defining its shape in the light, like a shadow. So I said this became a nickname in 5th grade. And then when that construct got into its final stages, I just gave that nickname to the construct, to the tulpa. Then Sophia came in the picture. Now, Sophia's a little girl.
Not really. She's 17.
She's aged with me, but she started off younger.
Yeah, she was like, what, like 10 when she started?
When I started her off, she was like 10 to 14 years old. Now she's 18, 19.
Right. And how old were you when you created Sophia?
Probably like 13-ish.
Okay, so why did Sophia come into the picture? Why did you create a female teenage alter?
This is a story I never even told you. So when I was a kid, when I was a kid and I was first going through puberty, I didn't have any kind of positive influence in terms of how to understand these new, strange, strong sexual hormone feelings that I was having. Because at that time, my mom and my dad were their horns were locked in a heated, child support based battle over my.
It wasn't about you at all.
It wasn't about me at all. So I was home by myself every day. My mom was always working. Excuse me, I'm very gassy. I didn't have a babysitter. I was alone in the house all the time, and I was by myself. I didn't feel safe talking to anybody, and a lot of my friends at the time were female at school. I didn't really get along with as many boys as I did girls for no particular reason. In fact, there was the point where I thought I was gay, but it turned out I just wasn't attracted to any of the girls in my class.
Yeah, you just didn't know you had options.
Yeah, I just wasn't aware of the options. Exactly.
But you were in touch with your feminine side at that time more so than you were.
As we refer back to Carl Jung, the animus, which is the feminine energy that exists in all of us.
Right.
The animus was starting to come out as my puberty kicked in.
And your sides were balancing out and you were getting in touch with your feminine energy.
Yeah, and as I was getting in touch with my feminine energy, I had no one around me to help assess these feelings. So I came up with this character, Sophia, in the universe of my personal tulpas. She acts as like an adopted daughter to Shadow. They're not related, but not by blood, but basically he takes care of her. He raises her. He takes care of her. And I express her as being this inhuman kind of mutated little girl. She has what's called a two mouth, where her mouth opens up sideways and it also opens up normally.
She's a very tiny Native American girl. Is she Native or half Native? I can't remember which one.
She's half Native American as a reference to
half white. Right?
No. She's half black and half Native American.
What it was.
That's a reference to my grandmother, who was half black and half Cherokee. On her father's side was the Cherokee side.
I can't remember if she was half, or I can't remember exactly what the details. But Sophia, she's a lesbian. She's asexual, though. She's an
asexual lesbian. So she likes women, but she doesn't like having sex, if that makes sense.
She just thinks women are pretty. She's very primal, so she's more like still very childlike. Like right now, Sophia's currently like 17, but she's still very. She still has a very high pitched voice. She still sounds like a little girl.
She's like 17 to 19 years old.
She likes pretty women, but she gets nervous around them.
Right.
She still kind of plays with toys. But she looks like this beautiful little like half Native American girl who's like very tiny, probably like 5'1", long black ponytail. But her mouth opens into her two mouths. So
her mouth. It's like this. Like you have your normal open mouth, but imagine if the very bottom of your jaw opened sideways and there were more teeth inside.
Kind of very alien-like.
It's more like Predator. But with less of them.
But then they have the two. She has the second mouth, which is like almost like Alien, which is like a straw, almost like a tube. It's
like if you ever seen Blade 2, the Reaper vampires from that had the exact same. Like they came the closest to what Sophia's mouth would look like. It looks so. If you're listening to this and you want to figure out exactly what this crazy ass character I've come up with looks like, and I've drawn plenty of pictures of her, and I'm going to continue to do that again. That's what she looks like.
Yeah, the Reaper vampire mouth is the closest thing we've seen that looks like.
Yeah,
that.
That's the closest. It's not exactly that, but that's the closest.
And she's not like evil or anything. She's like
the reason she looks like that is, again, I was feeling all of these very primal emotions and feelings at the time that I didn't understand. So Sophia is a compilation of all of those primal sexually based confusion feelings, and it resulted in a very confused, mutated expression of humanity.
And we have experienced each other's tulpas. Like I said, it doesn't really interfere with our relationships, but we can see when one is prominent and the other, for sure. And Sophia is very prominent when Charles gets nervous because he saw my titties. And I'm like, we've been dating for 3 years. Why are you stuttering?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Again, these are just thought forms. They're just ways that one can use them as a way to assess what's happening in themselves that they can't quite understand. Those of us who have the ability to do it voluntarily.
And if you can separate that and realize that it's just part of you and it's just a way to express a certain emotion or a certain part of you, and it's not a constant thing, it's a pretty healthy way to manage certain emotions.
Yeah, it can be helpful. It
definitely has helped me grow as a person, for sure.
It can be helpful. There was a time where I actually had many, because I was feeling a lot of shit.
And you turn to your tulpas at different points. You might have more at certain times. Sometimes you may not even like contact or get in touch with your tulpa for like years.
Yeah, there was a time where I had many more because I was feeling a lot of very confusing emotions that I had no frame of reference for. So I just built a tulpa for each one so I could talk to that emotion and assess it. And as I spoke to more, they started going away until I was just left with Shadow and Sophia,
who have stuck around for all these years.
Yeah, because they're the most utilitarian of them all. Like, they serve. When
you didn't need the other ones as much. It was like when Nikki said Roman died, she just meant she didn't need him at that point.
Yeah, and that's usually how it goes. Like,
but what was like your story behind yours? Didn't Sophia eat them or something?
Yeah, Sophia said she ate the other ones.
Meaning that part of you probably absorbed all those other parts.
Yeah, that's what that part of me was really saying. The primal part of me was saying, I've grown as a person.
You no longer
and I no longer need to separate the emotions from me to understand them. Now they are a part of me. I'm one with them. So Sophia says that train of thought like I ate the other ones, except for Shadow, because Shadow is like. He is the construct that represents what I aspire to grow into. I want to be a person that's strong and respected. I don't want to be feared or anything, but the reason he looks like a darker character is because I feel often misunderstood, and I'm often looked upon negatively or overlooked in the first place. But even inside of being overlooked or seen as negative, I'm a strong person that is resilient and consistent.
And Esme is sort of what I'm hoping to eventually be in my final form. Deeply maternal, deeply intelligent, deeply strong, but sort of hilarious because she's so ridiculous. And, she's based on like a lot of parts of myself. So, I mean, it's just like those better parts of myself. And I use her less and less as time goes on.
We did an episode recently called the Harley Quinn Outpatient Theory where we touched on this just a little bit.
Like how a person can lose control over those things.
Yeah, and according to that theory, Harley Quinn created the tulpa. No, Dr. Harleen Quinzel created the tulpa of Harley Quinn to deal with the Joker.
Right.
And the trauma made her disassociated so much that she got locked inside that personality and it became an alter ego.
It became more disassociated. And that can happen. The thing is, I don't recommend tulpas and alters for everybody.
No.
Not alters, I mean tulpas and constructs for everybody.
No.
This is one of those things that if you are in a good or a semi-good mental state as far as the strength of how your brain works and how aware you are of in control of yourself, it can make a difference. Like, it just varies person to person. I don't recommend it for everybody, but some people it really does create something for them that helps.
Before we go, I'd like to talk about a couple of other celebrities that do this same practice. This is not something that's commonly spoken about, and there's plenty of people out there that are doing it. You probably know them. You might be one of them. It's not common. I don't want people to feel weird, which is part of the reason why we're doing this episode, because there's a distinction between someone with DID who has involuntary alters that take over their minds and someone without DID who created an imaginary friend to help them assess their own mind. One is trying to check in,
talks to their higher self, and views them as a different person.
And one is very unfortunately being forced to check out.
Yep,
that is the difference. We have another one of the rappers that we like is Tyler the Creator.
Oh, he has one too. Yeah.
He has Wolf Haley as an alter ego.
I forgot about Wolf Haley.
Yeah, Wolf Haley, and actually he has another one now named Igor.
Does he?
Yeah, let me look up. Hold up, Tyler the Creator.
Alter.
I think his name is Igor or
construct. What's his construct? Yeah.
Or that might just be the name of the song, and I'm misinterpreting it. That's definitely the name of the song. I think I just referred to that character as Igor because the first time that I saw him was in that song. But he looks super like this is Igor. This is that character.
Do you think are these tulpas?
I'm pretty well. Yeah, it is because Tyler the Creator doesn't.
We're not really sure, but definitely it appears that way, judging how tulpas and constructs work.
Yeah, Tyler the Creator doesn't come off as someone who is like
charactery.
Yeah, he doesn't come off as someone who has dissociative identity disorder.
Well, I mean, it's not automatically the
uses,
idea either. I mean, if it could have been like that thing you said about Joe Calderone, it may be a different thing.
Yeah. This character he's created for the Igor music video. It's Earthquake. I think his name is Earthquake.
What? Really?
Yeah, I think that's the name of this character. Anyway, this character I think is like a Joe Calderone, where it's Tyler the Creator's way of smashing through the way that entertainment culture manipulates people.
A certain culture thing, like calling out a certain societal thing.
Yeah, just like Wolf Haley was something of along those lines.
But it shows all of these things are different layers. Like, there's so many different layers to it, and I recommend you do your own research on it. It's fascinating. Study Carl Jung, study constructs, study DID.
Study Buddhism.
Yeah.
Because apparently they did it there. I didn't know that until today.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's really interesting. It goes back for like very early phases of time. Even people have been doing this forever.
Then you got who else? Then Jay-Z's Hove. I don't know. I would count Hove as an alter ego.
I don't know about Hove. That's the thing. I'm not I like Jay-Z fine, but I don't know much about him personally.
The thing is, when you've heard Jay-Z speak about the character Hove is like every negative thing that Jay-Z has grown to regret that he did in his youth, he turned into a construct, a tulpa in his mind, and he places all those feelings there.
Is Yeezy a construct?
Probably, but then so could potentially Yeezus, who didn't...
Yeezy and Yeezus are like two identifiers from Kanye, but I also don't know. Kanye just doesn't seem mentally stable at all.
No.
So I don't know if he has constructs or if he has DID or if he's just talking out his ass most of the time.
I have no idea.
I mean, I feel like Yeezus and Yeezy started out as constructs, but Kanye's mental health has not gone well over the years. So I think he sort of lost control over everything.
There's this YouTube channel called Wisecrack. They did a whole episode called The Philosophy of Kanye West, and they broke down the concept of Yeezy versus Kanye, and they basically said that they acted very different. They have totally different priorities altogether.
Yeah, I wonder if that's an alter or like that's what I'm curious about. But like, definitely do your own research. But definitely ones that are confirmed are definitely Sasha Fierce and Roman and Roman's family.
Yeah, Sasha Fierce, Roman, Hove, Slim Shady.
Those were all constructs. Didn't Eminem say Slim Shady was definitely a construct? He said that. Like,
yeah, well, I don't know if he said it.
He's implied it without saying the word tulpa or construct. Yeah. He's like implied that it's like his performance personality.
Now, before I mention this one, let's just try to rack our brains. Is there anybody else who does this?
We said Ziggy Stardust.
We did Ziggy Stardust. Does Prince have one? I think Prince is his own goddamn tulpa.
Yeah, because Prince, the Prince we see on stage seems very different than, other parts of Prince.
All right, I think that might be it. Okay, well, I want to talk about one very well, he's not that famous, but he's famous if you ever saw the show Taxi.
I've seen Taxi. I wasn't a huge fan though.
This tulpa is such an interesting tulpa because he's a tulpa that didn't exist in one person. He was a tulpa that existed in more than one person. There was a comedic actor by the name of Charlie Kaufman.
I've heard of, I thought it was Andy Kaufman.
I mean, sorry, Andy Kaufman. Charlie Kaufman's a different person. Andy Kaufman. Let me just make sure I'm looking at, hold up, because I got it pulled up here. All right, Andy Kaufman. Andy, that's who it is. Andy Kaufman had this tulpa by the name of Tony Clifton. Tony Clifton.
Oh, yeah.
Tony Clifton was an extremely unreasonable human being. Matter of fact, I'm gonna read it here.
He looks like a sleazy lounge singer.
That's exactly what it was.
He kind of looks like Earl from the Goodbye Earl music video.
Tony Clifton is a character created by performance artist Andy Kaufman, who also portrayed him in the 1970s. Characteristic of the many elaborate hoaxes and practical jokes Kaufman concocted. Clifton was not exclusively portrayed by Kaufman. Others, mainly longtime Kaufman friend Bob Zamuda, also performed the role. So this was a tulpa that had multiple hosts. This was crazy, and he was straight up a tulpa. Like it was the point where Tony Clifton had a negative opinion of Andy Kaufman separately from Andy. Tony Clifton, if you said that Tony and Andy were the same person to Tony Clifton, Tony would get angry at you. He would punch you in the face if you pushed him hard enough.
And Andy Kaufman wasn't like that at all.
And Andy referred to Tony like he was a different person as well. they spoke about each other like there was this falling out a long time ago between the two of them, and they can't be seen in the same room. And it's crazy. Kaufman would sometimes claim that Tony was a great lounge singer whom Kaufman encountered in the International Hotel in Las Vegas in 1969. He was waiting for Elvis Presley to arrive, so when he met him, so he could meet him. Sorry, he was waiting for Elvis Presley to arrive so he could meet him. Kaufman may have seen Clifton as the antithesis of the sweet, gentle foreign man character he was best known for, which was later adopted by, how do you pronounce that? Latka Gravis?
Let me see. Latka Gravis.
Yeah.
A fictional,
Latka Gravis, Kaufman's character in Taxi. Okay. So, here's the thing. Clifton was played by Andy Kaufman. He existed in Andy Kaufman. He existed in his friend Bob Zmuda. And later, he came back in Jim Carrey.
What?
Yeah.
Jim Carrey? So, was he a tulpa or was he a character?
No. Well, Clifton's a tulpa, but the thing is, he's a character-based tulpa. But the thing is,
can that happen? Can tulpas go from one person to another?
Well, it depends on the condition of the mind and how that person looks at that particular personality. Andy Kaufman decided to share his tulpa with people.
Oh, that's true. People can do that.
Yeah, Clifton was a character that Andy came up with that he stuck with so long that he became a tulpa that he just referred to all the time. Huh. Bob Zmuda also referred to this tulpa. When they did Man on the Moon, where Jim Carrey played Andy Kaufman, the biopic, an excellent movie.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey turned Andy and Tony into two different tulpas.
Yeah, because they were totally different people. Because
Jim Carrey method acted and got trapped inside of Andy, and there's a wonderful documentary on Netflix.
Oh, that's right, he did. Which is why, like, real talk, I'm an actor. Actors out there, I don't care what you say. Method acting should not be done. If you are truly a good actor, you should be able to dip in and out of that character without having to become them and absorb them. Too many people I know who have method acted have lost their fucking minds.
If I remember correctly, the technical term for method acting is called the Meisner method. I had a friend years ago who got into Meisner. He became a method actor. It completely warped his personality.
It ruined their lives.
It ruined, I know several of my friends and my mentor no longer talk to him because of what that method acting shit did to him.
I know a lot of method actors that I no longer speak to because they've basically warped their own brain.
It is the acting equivalent of going to the dark side and becoming a Sith Lord. Don't do it.
Acting is a part, like, you become part of that character, and you are not who you normally are, but you are so much yourself. Once the camera stops rolling, you are able to be yourself. If you are eating like your character and training for months and like becoming this person, it's dangerous. Jack Nicholson told Heath Ledger not to fucking do it.
Yeah,
he's like, it's just too dangerous. So anybody who wants to act, under no circumstances should you method act. And as far as I'm concerned, if you need to method act to act, you're not a good actor.
Now that's what's crazy, because Jim Carrey is a good actor, but he method acted Andy anyway.
But just that one role, he doesn't method act everything he does. I'm saying if you are the kind of person who needs to method act all the time, you're not a good actor. You're just somebody who is absolutely crazy.
Right, but he method act. Not only did he method act Andy, Jim Carrey would show up on set as Tony Clifton, the tulpa, Tony Clifton, separately from Andy. He would not show up as Jim. He wouldn't show up as Andy. He would show up as Tony. This dude would literally try to run people over in golf carts as Tony Clifton. Because
Tony was part of Andy. He was so much a part of Andy that you couldn't leave it out. Just like I hope in Dave they bring Brain up, because you can't have Little Dicky without Brain.
Yeah.
It's just too much. It becomes too much of that person.
Right. But that's why Tony Clifton is such a crazy, fascinating tulpa character, because he has three hosts. Yeah. He has three hosts for now.
I mean,
he's outlived his original host.
God knows what that probably did to Jim Carrey's brain.
Well, based on that documentary, quite a bit. I still love Jim Carrey. If you listen to this,
he sounds like he went through a lot of stuff.
Yeah, if you listen to this, Jim, I love you. And
this isn't a criticism on you. It's a simple of, I'm very concerned for your well-being because of it.
And you have, of all people, have definitely been through a lot of stuff to justify both making a tulpa and disassociating from reality. But on the real, that was some intense shit.
That was dangerous, dude.
That was dangerous.
That was dangerous as fuck, dude.
Yeah. You can't be doing stuff like that.
You crazy, man.
You know, they talked about that in Tropic
Don't
Thunder.
do that.
But you can't go all the way. You can't go full. You got to act, pretend. Okay.
Yeah.
A tulpa is an imaginary friend. Acting is just a technical term for pretending as an adult. That's all this shit
because
is.
tulpas are not much different than acting. You know you're still you.
Yeah.
It's just a different side of you, a different layer of your personality that you have to get more in touch with in a certain situation.
Now, really quick, you have a lot of fans out there. Before we wrap up, I spent a lot of time talking about the origins of Shadow and Sophia. Can you speak a little bit more about Esme? Because I'm sure a lot of people want to know more about.
I mean, what do you want me to talk about?
tulpa.
Because I talked about how like I invented Esme as a coping mechanism of a breakup and as a way for me to get in touch with who I am now. I had to go through like a whole spiritual journey, and Esme was sort of the person who guided me through that.
Well, like my tulpas, your tulpa has a world she lives in. Why don't you just walk them through the experience of what it's like having Esme as a tulpa?
You know, Esme, if I were to give Esme a home, it would be like this beautiful palace type home with grand tables that are 3,000 years old made out of a fucking tree, carved by her own village. You know, she came from a village of war witches. They all had gifts and powers of divination following the moon. And a virus came and wiped out her entire village, except for her. And it's a whole thing. But she's quite small for her village. They're very Amazonian. Most of them are like 6 foot and flats.
Was the virus thing always? Because I thought that was just my addition.
That was your addition, but it actually helped me conclude what happened to her family. It was sort of a...
Because I'm not trying to rob your mind from you or nothing.
No, all you did was help me.
Okay.
Esme had very complicated relationships with her mother, who was the queen of that village, and Esme was next in line, and it was sort of symbolic. It was sort of symbolic to my own issues with my mother. Esme is a very powerful witch, but like I said, she stood very small for her village. She's 5'7" versus the other women who were probably 6 foot and taller. But she is kind. She's strong. She spends most of her time doing spells for others, basically helping me through my crazy shit. She makes her own weapons. She, has a room for fencing and dueling. Basically, she helps me get through the mental battles ahead.
Yeah.
But she's also deeply maternal. She's a maternal energy for me to lean on because I didn't have a mom that I could trust, and I had to sort of be my own mom. So Esme comforts that side of me when I need a mother. She has different layers. She spends most of her time smoking joints and walking around judging people quietly. She speaks in a very deep voice. She has very fierce blue eyes. Yeah. Strong cheekbones. She's gorgeous, like how she's designed. But she was sort of a friend to me and a mother to me when I didn't have those things. Mm-hmm.
And that's what
they're supposed to fill, those voids that we don't have and we need to fill for ourselves.
Yeah, that's what they're supposed to do. Being a human is hard. And sometimes we got to do weird shit to get through it.
I wouldn't even call this weird. It's just a sort of a coping mechanism.
Well, yeah, coping mechanisms can sometimes appear in abnormal ways, is my point.
Or seemingly abnormal. This, and I think we should normalize constructs, tulpas, and things like that for people who need a secondary perspective in their brain.
At the very least, we should normalize the conversation because this is something that humans have always done. But it's something that humans rarely speak about.
Some people might even have constructs and tulpas and don't even know it.
Yeah, this is something that humans rarely speak about because it's when you say these concepts out loud, it makes people cringe a little bit.
Once we reach a certain age in society tells you it's not okay to believe in ghosts. It's not okay to have imaginary friends. It's not okay to believe in witchcraft and magic. And we all have magic and those things in us. All of those things. We only don't believe in them because people tell us we shouldn't. Right. You have an imaginary friend and one day you're 12 and your mom said, by the way, Santa's not real and you shouldn't have an imaginary friend. And it discourages you and embarrasses you and shames you. Right. But in reality, it can be quite helpful. So, basically my closing argument and my closing point in general is don't let society shame you into what's allegedly normal if you found a way to cope. The only things I don't really find tolerable are like pedophilia, rape, all the standard really horrible things. Yeah. But if you have like a coping mechanism like a tulpa, or even if you have an illness like dissociative identity disorder, there is absolutely no shame in it. Yeah. You've obviously been through a lot. And if you have DID, you obviously needed something to feel like you were safe. And I hope if you do have that illness or illnesses like that or any mental illness, you heal well. No one is telling you have to get over it. Just manage. And I hope you do okay. Take your medication if it helps, and find ways to just manage it and be happy.
Yeah, that very well said. My closing remarks are, people use words like normal, but try to remember that normal is relative. What's normal for you, like, I don't know, being allergic to shellfish, is not normal for someone else.
And think about that line from Halloween Town, being normal is vastly overrated.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So if you're out there and you're somebody who is struggling with DID, we can't do anything necessarily from here that'll literally help you, but just understand that we're out here thinking about you and your struggles. You're living every single day.
And understand it.
We respect and understand you. And look, we hope that we learn as much as we can about how you live with yourself and your many other selves, however you choose to feel about it. We hope to learn a lot more about it, because this is something that happens to people every day that nobody likes to talk about.
We'd love to hear about your experiences. Like if you have a Tulpa construct, or if you have DID, or any other like mental thing. I'm not going to even say illness, because solving a Tulpa is not illness, but any kind of mental thing that helps you cope with your traumas or your life, share with us. We'd love to hear about it. Send us an email at jugosippodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. And visit the website.
Yeah, visit our website. Google us. You can always contact us. We're very interested in hearing people's emotional, spiritual, and mental journeys.
All right. On that note, we're going to see y'all in the next one.
All right. Love you guys. Bye.